1S1. Any unit in District 2, Zone 2, having a chainsaw and some availability to help out one of our own, please?
Clearing my 38. I'll be on a 1019 to HCF.
1021-4642, priority 3,
Code
please.
2 for a 1055 no contact well-being check on one of
Code
our
this location. Could I have a unit 1025 with me for Code 2? Bring in some water.
Hi, I'm Chris from US Preparatory. Today I'm going to show you how to properly install an NMO antenna mount. Let's get started. Alright, some of the tools here that you're going to need for this job is recommend hearing protection, some eye protection, a tape measure, painter's tape, an adjustable wrench, something to write with, the NMO of course. In this case we're using a 3/4 inch standard NMO, but there is an NMO, a new style NMO that will work with a 3/8 all the way up to a 3/4 inch hole. I'm not installing that one on this particular job, but we will be stocking that on uspreparatory.com as an option for this type of standard 3/4 inch mount. The advantage is that it has a little bit more metal around it and it allows you to drill a smaller hole. Some rags, and I'll show you why those rags may be important for your installation, and some optional things like a multimeter for continuity checks and screwdrivers to maybe take off some moldings or things like that. Now, of course, a drill. Now, the bits that I recommend to you, the first bit, definitely the highest recommended bit, is the commercial grade hole saw. Now, the hole saw, a real hole saw, the ones that are made for commercial use, is available at pretty much any hardware store. It has a replaceable man drill that can be replaced when it dulls. And of course, a 3/4 inch hole saw that is inexpensive and easy to replace. They do make a hole saw that's specifically designed for NMOs. It's a shallow mount bit that has a ring, essentially 3/16 of an inch up from the teeth. And what that does is it stops the bit from going in too deep. Now, I have a trick for that I'm going to show you that may offset that. And if that's the case, then you'll be able to go with a standard hole saw, which is going to be, all this is going to be available, the installation kits are going to be available on the US Preparatory site, and you're going to be able to just buy the kits as a whole, so you don't have to go to the store and pick out each individual item. Another option is the unibit. A 3/4 inch unibit, although it's not the highest recommended bit for the job, for a few reasons. It's pretty expensive, $20 to $40, and they dull fairly quickly, and they're not really anything that you can sharpen yourself. So if you're going to be the person that is going to be doing the installs for your group, you definitely want to go with the commercial grade hole saw. And this particular bit, if you happen to have one laying around, it certainly could be used, but for a lot of jobs I wouldn't use this. Bits that you absolutely want to avoid is one-piece junk type of hole saws like this, very sloppy. Will change the diameter of the hole likely and will not be a clean hole, which could definitely impact the quality of the mount and the install and the seal. Twist bits, absolutely avoid these. Too aggressive. When they go through the roof, they tend to pull themselves right into the headliner. Not a good choice. Also can deform the roof's metal. Any kind of stretching or bending will, of course, impact the seal of the NMO mount itself. And of course, another bit to avoid is going to be a wood bit, a spade bit. Of course, you don't want to use that. You'll destroy the roof. Okay, I guess that's pretty much it. Let's get started. Okay, so as you can see, the sunroof's fairly large. It's a power sunroof. It opens inside, so we're going to have to navigate that when we get inside with the coax cable and we put in the mount. Now, I'm showing you on this vehicle because this is probably a bit more of a challenge than most installations. And for most NMO antenna mounts in most vehicles, especially when you're mounting 2 or less of these mounts for an antenna, you're going to find that you won't have to actually remove the headliner or even take it down. What your main focus is to look for a dome light like this, a standard dome light. This will be your access point for your installation. You can pretty much do everything from this location. Now I'm going to show you further on how we do that. First thing we want to do is pull down this dome light. Usually it's just a screwdriver. Pull the lens down, And there's either going to be clips or there's going to be screws. In this case, we have screws. I typically would use a drill with a driver bit on it, but this will work just fine. It's only 2 screws. So we want to investigate what's up there. Typically, you're going to find that the dome light is screwed directly to a strut in the roof. And under no circumstances do you want to drill through a strut. So we're going to do our homework here and make sure that we avoid the strut at all costs when we go to actually drill. So we're gonna do a couple things. Make sure we're not going to be drilling through a strut, and make sure we're centered on the roof. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look up in this roof here, the structure, and see what's going on up there. You can see the second truss. That's the one we want to put the antenna in front of, and the reference, of course, is the AM/FM antenna is just right there, just above it. You can see the coax coming out from that. We're going to tape up this entire area. And the marking that we'll be doing will be on this tape. The other thing that this will provide is a barrier of metal filings and chips to stop it from scratching the paint. Next step is to mark it out. So we need to find the center. On most roofs, you're going to find that there is a hard point, whether it's a rack, a gutter. You want to make the cross-reference line or measure every place that you're, approximately every place that you're going to be putting an NMO. In our case, we're only putting in 1 antenna, but if we were putting in multiple antennas, we would do this in the area for each one. If it was an SUV and we were doing 4, naturally we would go down and make 4 reference marks. The reason why that is because sometimes these hard points are not parallel all the way down the entire surface of the roof. So you want to make sure that they are referenced. Each one is referenced individually. Also, as a reference after we're done marking as a center line, you'll notice that in most cases, not every, and this is why this should be confirmed, but the center line of the vehicle is typically any antennas that are put on the vehicle, a third brake light. On the front of the vehicle, it would be a rear view mirror mount on the windshield that you can reference it to. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is put the tape measure across right in the area where we want to drill, which we know it's going to be somewhere in this area right here. And we're going to just eye the what we think is the center. So I'm going to guess it looks like it's 18 3/8. I'm going to put a mark at 18 3/8. Then I'm going to flip the ruler around, the tape measure around, do the same thing. 18 3/8. And we know these two lines, whatever's between these two lines should be the center of the roof. So I'm going to mark it right here. That'll be the center point. Let's just verify that by measuring that out. 18 5/8. 18 5/8. So that is the center. That's our reference point right there. Okay, so here's our antenna base. This is for the VHF low band antenna. It is an NMO 40, a Larson, which is one of my favorites. That's the center. Okay, so now we're going to eye it from on the ground and verify that this is in the center of the vehicle, both left to right, passenger side to driver side, but also is in the place laterally on the headliner area where we're going to be able to not hit one of those struts. I put a reference mark over there. We're going to look at that now. Now this is Tungsten. He's in the back of the vehicle. He's no help. This is not an easy thing to show, but we referenced some lines here from the edge of this headliner. 21 inches from here is the beginning of the other strut. About 8 or 9, actually about 8.5 inches is the first strut. So I made a reference mark with a pencil in between those two at around the 15.5-inch mark, which is right here. Now it's hard to show this all in one shot on video, but if we look at the outside of the vehicle and we cross-reference this with where we just put that NMO base of the antenna, you'll see that I'm right in line with this particular mark. I'll try my best to show you that. All right, you can't see the reference mark because of the tinted windows, but if we move the camera straight up, you will see that the antenna mount is right here, and that gives us our reference. Okay, now this is where the rags come in. The rags are going to be balled up in such a way that we place them on either side of where the hole is going to be drilled. And that spaces the headliner down between 3 and 4 inches away from the roof surface. And it gives you enough space to be able to drill without penetrating or nicking the headliner. I'm going to stick these in, and you can ball them up once they're in. Okay, back up on the roof, we have our marks. What I recommend you do is build a tape dam, a round circle around where you're going to drill. And this will stop chips from scattering all over the place on the roof. See, the thing with steel chips is you'll find that you miss them when it's too late, after it's rained, after it's snowed. So having some type of barrier to stop as many as possible certainly will help. Get your hearing protection and your eye protection ready, and of course your drill, and we're going to drill right on our center mark. Alright, there's two ways of actually installing this. I prefer, and I think you would too, putting it in from the top rather than the bottom. So we're just going to remove the ring, and we're going to try to get this coax connector to come out of the dome light opening, which shouldn't be that hard to do. Okay. NMOs are pretty tolerant of any burrs, so you don't have to worry about filing or anything like that. Okay, I have some dielectric grease on this O-ring. The reason why that's important is you don't want this O-ring, as you're tightening it down, to bind on this nut, because if you put a tear in it, it will leak. So just make sure that you do that. I'm going to point the coax towards the direction I want the coax to come out inside. I'm going to put it in sideways and let it catch, and then I'm going to start the retaining nut. I'm going to get it down about 3/4 of the way. Then I'm going to pull up, and you can feel it. It'll sit right in the right place as you snug it up. Now, they do make a spanner wrench for these little indentations. I have never had a need to use them. I've never had the NMO spin. The grip on the inside is very good. Now, you don't want to go crazy here, but snug enough. That's pretty good. If you look around the edges, you make sure that you don't see any O-rings sticking out. If you do, you might have a tear, or it might be misaligned. So make sure you just check that. Other than that, that's pretty much it to the outside NMO. Now we're just going to run the coax cable over to our radio. Okay, I just rerouted the coax from the dome light over to this location. Avoided any mechanicals up there with the sunroof. Made sure it wasn't going to hang in the way. And avoid the airbag. This car has airbag side air curtains right here and in the front. And we want to make sure that if we are going to run the coax, it's going to be well clear of it. and behind the deployment of the airbag. In this case, I just came out right up behind this pillow. The airbags are up here. It's way down. It actually comes in the back here, on the back side. And all we're going to do is just pull up the molding, run it in, and we're going to route it right to our radio, which in this car is actually underneath the front seat. Okay, we are finished routing our coaxial cable from the NMO mount on the roof. In this case, it's being routed over to underneath the seat because we're using an HL1 remote head kit mount. A few things I want to point out here is once you button up the car, it's going to be much more difficult to do this next step. And this step isn't absolutely necessary because out of the few hundred of these NMO mounts I've done in government vehicles and personal vehicles, I've yet to have any issues with them. Either no issues with leaking, none of that stuff. And there's a reason why this has been the industry standard for almost 35 years. But that step is if you happen to have a multimeter, put the multimeter on continuity. Continuity should give you an audible tone, okay, when the two probes are touched. A good test to test the coaxial cable to make sure that the ground is proper on the NMO mount that we just put in is touch ground of the coaxial cable on the outside of the cable itself, and touch a good ground on the body of the vehicle. Usually this door latch is a really good place to do it. It's got to be something that's not painted. And we got a good ground. So that indicates that the ground contact being made on the NMO and the roof is proper. It's actually making a really good contact. The other thing, the other thing that I want to point out too is if you do the same test and you touch ground and you touch the center conductor pin only, it should not conduct. So there should not be any conductivity or continuity between the two. If you did have continuity there, a few things it could be. Either bad connector, a short in the coax, short in the NMO, or you got to remember to take off your base load for your antenna. If you don't take off a base load mount of the antenna that's on that NMO mount, it will show a short in the coax when you do that continuity test between the center conductor and the outside. Okay, well, I guess that's pretty much it. I'm going to sew up the rest of this job, and I appreciate you watching.